Welcome back to Spilling the Teeth, the podcast from Henry Schein One, where we explore the real conversations shaping the future of dentistry. Before we get started, a quick thank you to everyone who supported Season 1. We're excited to keep the conversation going with a strong lineup of guests throughout Season 2. Today marks the start of a new season, and the theme is Leading with Purpose. Over the coming episodes, we'll be sharing real-world perspectives on leadership, team dynamics, and the mindsets that help create motivated, patient-focused cultures across dentistry. As we look ahead to 2026, the pace of change in the industry continues to accelerate. Workforce pressures, rising patient expectations, and rapid advances in AI and cloud technology are reshaping how practices operate, making this a critical moment for thoughtful, purposeful leadership. In this episode, we'll be diving into the findings from the Henry Schein One white paper, exploring the key trends influencing dentistry today, from workforce challenges and patient experience to the growing role of digital and cloud-based technology in practice management. Joining me are Ben Flewett, VP of International for Henry Schein One, and James Harker, Executive Director for UK and APAC at Henry Schein One. Together, we'll unpack what these trends mean in practice, how technology, including Dentally, can help simplify workflows and build patient trust, and what leaders can do to support engaged, high-performing teams. So, if you're thinking about what's next for dentistry and how to prepare for it, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. So Ben, reflecting on 2025, what were the biggest challenges and opportunities you saw in dentistry, and how did they shape the industry?
Well, we live in a pretty interesting time, I think, in the history of the world at the moment. We've gone through quite a huge amount of change this year, and I think there's certainly a considerable anticipation building with some of the changes in technology that are now starting to filter in and become a reality. But I think the main changes in 2025 are kind of a continuation of recent years. Workforce shortages in dentistry in the UK is clearly a huge thing. People clearly have less money in their pockets, so the preparedness to pay for dentistry, whether it be private or NHS, on behalf of the public, is certainly impacted. But also it's becoming increasingly clear as we go through the later part of the year that there is quite a bit of pressure coming on the government spend as well. So there's less money, both in terms of individuals and in government, to pay. And I think that's manifesting in some rather strange things that are happening in the industry. I see in the last couple of weeks that the Chancellor has written to the CMA, the Competition Markets Authority, to ask them to investigate why private dentistry why the costs are soaring so much, which is kind of, I find it quite bizarre in a way, in that I don't think anyone would really contest that the UK market had some sort of inappropriate force at work. We've got a few bigger corporates, and I guess maybe there's a lack of competition in like microcosms here and there across the UK, but the majority of the UK market is served by a huge body of independent practices that do not collaborate. They genuinely compete and compete amongst themselves, compete with the corporates and the mid-market groups. So the fact that we're starting to see that type of thing emerging, I think, is indicative of the external pressures that are starting to come on the industry.
So James, from a technology perspective, how do you think Dentally sort of arose to those challenges and helped to support practices this past year?
Yeah, good question, Alan. So we've been spending a huge amount of money and investment in Dentally, and we've never had a bigger team working on it and building more in the product to try and help as many dental practices as we possibly can. This year we've seen an explosion in our partner program. We've been working with trusted partners to really ensure that all the bits that happen in a dental practice that Dentally doesn't provide a solution for, you can integrate directly with those partners. So you can get the job done, because we appreciate that every single dental practice operates differently. There's no two are the same, and so it's important that dental practices are able to use the tools they need to sort of get the workflows done that they need to. Internally, we've spent a huge amount of time and effort really developing Dentally Vision and Dentally Vision AI, so that clinicians can have better workflows. They can use the tooling to really speak to their patients and educate them. At the end of last year, we launched our clinical notes AI product. So you can dictate your notes to Dentally and have them summarized in the template of your choice. We're continuing to work on that, and we'll be launching some more updates to that, hopefully in the not too distant future. And again, at the end of last year, we launched what I think is the biggest feature improvement of the year for me, which is something we're calling short notice filler. Probably can work on the name there. It's not the most.
It's right on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. But it does what it says. Like, it's the Ron Seal feature in that it will fill short notice gaps in your diary, and it's only being used by a small number of customers at the moment. But the impact we're seeing from that is quite astounding, and it's far bigger than we'd hoped. And for those who haven't used it yet, and what it really does is it takes a list of patients that need treatment or need an appointment, and takes gaps in your diary that have been created at short notice. Either someone's cancelled or you've not been able to fill it, and it allows you to contact those patients. And so basically, you're matching patients who need treatment with gaps in the diary to get them filled, and it's working exceptionally well. And as I say, it's only been out for a few weeks and only used by a few practices, but we've already filled, I think, 3,500 appointments for those that are using it, and it's quite astounding. And as Ben mentioned, with the cost of living crisis we're seeing, I think that unfortunately is going to continue. So I think these kind of features are really going to make a difference to dental practices in helping them through 2026.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of the emergence of intelligence built deep into Dentally as a product, and this is going to be the theme of 26, right? The intelligence that the team have built into that product is really important. That's how we've got that big result in just a couple of weeks of use. So.
Yeah, and another key point for me is it allows, like, practices try and fill short notice spaces as much as they can at the moment, but it involves a human running around to try and contact as many patients as they can. And I don't know if you've been to a dental practice recently, Alan, but they are not short of things to do.
Yes.
And the front desk team are incredibly thinly stretched. So really, this just gives them a few more minutes back in their day, a few more hours back over the course of the week, so that they can focus on the things they need to, focus on the patients in front of them, rather than just trying to make sure that the book is full.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, 2025 was definitely a year of innovation for Dentally, and short notice filler is just one of those great innovations, and it's really going to bring business outcomes to all of our customers, and I think 2026 is going to prove that. But actually, speaking about 2026 and looking forward to the future, we've actually just released the Henry Schein One 2025 white paper, looking back, but also therefore looking forward to what trends we're going to see next year. And it highlights lots of trends, lots of really interesting trends. But Ben, what do you see as the most pressing external pressures coming up in 2026 for practices?
I think it seems to me like it's unlikely that our economic situation is going to change, both as individuals. I don't think people are suddenly going to have more money in their pocket, unfortunately, through the course of the coming year. And I think it's unlikely that government spending on dentistry will increase materially. I don't think there's any quick fix to the workforce shortage, although I really wish we'd make a start at least on that, because it will take us years to solve that problem. I think it is a continuation of those factors. Yeah.
And the white paper itself actually touches on quite a lot of technology adoption to try and ease some of that burden. And I guess, James, what do you think are the four big tech themes that you're going to see shaping dentistry in 2026?
Yeah, great question. So I think we'll carry on seeing more AI tools will be integrated into workflows, or more adoption of tools. I know there's talk in sort of the software industry or the world at large about an AI bubble and whether that'll pop. Maybe, but I think AI is going to be here to stay, like, forever in some form. It may be overhyped in some places quite overhyped in some places, but actually there are workflows where it is going to make a big difference and you're not going to go backwards. Now, the overhype bit, I don't think it's going to replace people anytime soon. I think that's the bit that I can't see happening. Certainly in our industry, in dentistry, I don't see any chance of AI replacing your workforce anytime soon, but making it the clinician's job easier, or front desk team's job easier, sure, I can see that happening. And I think adoption of that and those tools throughout this year will be a big story. And really, that can only be done if you're on the cloud. And I know it's 2026 and we're still talking about on-prem versus cloud. But I think this is going to be where it helps people make the shift from on-prem to cloud, because you can't integrate many of these workflows and tools if you're on an on-premise system. And as I said about our partner program, we're seeing an explosion of tools in the market. If you sort of rock up to the dental shows, as we did last year, and I'm sure it'll be this year, there'll be a whole load more providers providing different solutions, and I think that'll continue to be a thing. And I think to do that effectively as a dental practice, though, you have to have it integrated into one system, and you can't have your team jumping from like 6, 7, 8, a dozen different systems.
Yeah.
That'll drive everyone mad. You're going to end up with data fragmentation and data all over the place. So the only way I can see that works is if they're all integrated, and you can't integrate those really on-prem. So that's why I think the cloud thing is going to become increasingly more relevant as we go into the future. And that'll be, again, with an angle towards data and security. We're seeing cyber attacks rise, unfortunately, across the whole world, and for various reasons. And we're also seeing regulation sort of increase across the whole world, and that's being able to be in control of your data and understand where it is and how it works. That's gonna continue to be a thing. So having it in one place centrally, where you know where it is and it's all safe and compliant. Yeah. Again, I think if you're trying to use a whole different, like 6 different tools and data all over the place, I think that's gonna be difficult. So yeah, like integrated tooling is really, I think, going to be the story of this year and for many years to come.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we've spoken about already quite a lot is how our tooling, DVAI, clinical AI notes, short notice fill, is going to improve things for the clinician, for the administrator, for the practice owner, practice manager. But we haven't talked a lot about patient experience, and all of these tools, they give something back to the patient. They give back more time, they give back better education. But Ben, you've been around for a long time in dental, and you've been here for a long time as part of that. And
I think you said you're old, Ben.
Well, not quite.
Sadly, this is now actually true. So I'm at peace.
But when you started here, like, patient experience was things like online booking, payments. They've now just become table stakes. We don't talk about them as much because they're just the bread and butter of the industry. But from an industry standpoint, how do you think practices now can go further to improve that patient trust, engagement, and overall experience?
Yeah, good question. So I'm 19 years into the industry. I remember when I first joined, we'd just released version 9i, and the I stood for internet. You know what I mean? So on Exact. Yeah, that's right. But of course, I think what's the dynamic that we're now seeing is tech as and of itself. Yeah, it's become, those pieces you're talking about have really become table stakes. I expect to be able to book restaurants online, all aspects of my life online, and dentist is no different. But I think the single most important thing about that is the time that it gives, not just the clinician, but everybody in the practice, to really focus on the human being that is in front of them. Nothing changes the extent to which a patient feels loyalty to a practice like engagement with the people in the practice. I actually know the name of my dentist. I know the name of his assistant. I know the two girls that work on reception, and I talk to them whenever I'm in there. And it is that makes me feel I belong there. And the purpose of tech is to remove all of the mundane tasks. I don't believe that, any person wakes up in the morning, any clinician wakes up in the morning and says, great, I'm going to go to work today and write some notes. That's not a thing. And I don't think anyone who works on the front desk of reception, goes to work thinking, great, I'm going to answer more phone calls and make more appointments. The important, what they want to do is, spend time with the people in front of them, help. Last time I was in a practice, the woman on reception sort of got up from behind the desk, came around and helped a woman with, she had 3 children, helped a woman with 2 of her children whilst one of her children was going into surgery for a checkup. It is that sort of thing that generates loyalty and is so much more rewarding for the people in the practice, right? And yeah.
Yes, really, really great point, especially trends that won't go away, mental health, things like that in the practice. If people can actually start giving real care, their own mental health is going to improve. So I totally agree. James, speaking about dentally, we went on that journey just now with Exact to dentally and all of the things that we've done along the way to help. But speaking about dentally in 2026, how are we helping take patient experience beyond the basics? Improving things like diagnosis, education, informed consent. What's our journey looking like in 2026 for dentally?
Yeah, good question. I think it continues to sort of what Ben says, is in the thing he talked about, notes there. Like, I saw a study and it was like dentists spend over 30% of their time writing notes or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it was a shockingly high number. And I remember when we first started dentally, actually. So Nick and I used to go around and say, look, the great thing about dentally is cloud, so you can do your notes from home, which looking back was sort of ridiculous, right? As in, like, you can't fit your job into 9 to 5, so don't worry, you can do it at home on the sofa with a glass of wine.
Pajama
spend
time.
Spend your evening writing notes. And back then, so Ben's been in the industry 19 years, I think you said, so rather shockingly, this is my 15th year in the industry, but I did start a lot younger than Ben, just to point out. So, but yeah, it's ridiculous now looking back to 2012 when we first launched dentally. That was a thing we promoted, and really, so doing clinical notes. AI, the whole point of it is not just to add AI to the product, is so you can get your notes done there and then at the time. So they're contemporaneous, so you're covered from a legal point of view, because that is an increasingly important thing, and it allows you to spend more time with the patient instead, so you can then educate them on, look, I'm not just suggesting treatment because I want to suggest it, but this is why, in explaining the consequence of if you don't do this thing now that I'm suggesting, here's what's going to happen. And I think that is further aided by tools like Dentally Vision AI, where you can bring the radiograph up on screen. It will highlight the parts for you, show you the cavity in a nice colour, which any dentist in the that I've met can quite quickly pick out a caries in a radiograph. But trying to explain that to a patient is a bit more tricky. This does it in a way that is just a lot easier and a lot more friendly, so that you can say, look, see that bit there that's been highlighted, if you don't do that, this is what is gonna happen. And it helps the patient sort of mentally get through see the problem for themselves, because they're normally going, well, I'm not in pain and I don't see an issue, so why are you saying there is one? So that they can get the treatment booked in, rather than sort of just delaying it and kick that can down the road until it is then a bigger problem. And really, I think, hopefully, the industry's been talking for years about how we shift from a reactive to a preventative model. And you're really seeing governments take this seriously, and the massive changes we're seeing in the NHS, particularly Wales, but also England are doing some big changes as well. This is going to be a bigger thing, and how do we actually shift the model to be a lot more preventative? I think you can't just decide that, like the NHS are trying to do overnight, and say, yeah, it's all going to be great. There's a lot to work out, but I think this is where technology can start to play its piece, and hopefully we can start shifting things on for patients.
Yeah, definitely, and I totally agree. you're seeing in the industry now the rise of the hygienist, but there's doing more to help with that prevention and education, so that the clinical burden is relieved from the dentist a bit more. And yeah, you're already seeing that come through. Ben, actually speaking about using other people to get some clinical time back, you spoke at the beginning around the workforce problems that we've got in dentistry, and it's not just the hiring, it's also the retention, and I spoke a bit about mental health as well, and stress-free dentistry is becoming one of the biggest challenges at the moment. How do you think leaders in dentistry, and that could be us as leaders, but it could be actual practice owners, how do you think leaders can be motivated to create inclusive cultures, more motivated teams, whilst navigating all of these pressures that are going on elsewhere?
Great question. So we've talked extensively already about how tech can help. But I actually think there's a much more basic human piece to this. My experience in this industry is that everybody in the industry, whether they work wet-fingered in a practice or somebody like our team here at Dentally, we're part of this industry in part because we want to care for people. We're interested in healthcare. That's what we want to do with our careers. It's part of what keeps me here. And I think for me, I think sometime back you'd have said that the plague of our time was COVID, but of course it's not at all. It's diabetes, dementia, cardio and stroke risk. Those are the four things that are really big problems, and we are really coming to understand the link between oral health and those conditions. What we do as an industry has a massive impact on not just the oral health of the nation, but the health of every individual in this country. And I'm very proud to be part of that. And I think leaders within dentistry, if we can refocus the teams on what we're doing and the consequences of what we are spending our careers doing, for me, I think that is the thing that we can do that really will help our teams feel good about what they do. And there is nothing more rewarding as an individual than doing something for another human being. It is that releases endorphins, that makes us feel good about ourselves and what we're doing. Personally, for me, that's the answer.
Yeah, and I'd probably add to that people I meet generally in all walks of life, they want to go to work and they want to work really hard and do a great job. I think it's particularly difficult in a dental practice at the moment because a lot of people are just out there firefighting, and so they're not able to actually get to the bits of the job that are rewarding, like Ben said, like the actual patient bits, because they're too busy just trying to do administrative work. So really, the more you can lean into tech and use that to augment your workflows, to pick up the bits that you don't need a human to do and free the person up to do the rest of the job, I think we'll start to see less burnout in the industry because people will still work bloody hard, but they'll be able to get to the bits that are rewarding and not just doing the admin bits and relying on technology instead.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things that a lot of people sort of come back to on that argument when we have these conversations, daily, they go, the technology is overwhelming. That there's too much tech out there. There's so many features. It feels overwhelming. But at Dentally, we seek to simplify that. So I guess my question to you here, James, is how does Dentally simplify that? How do we simplify workflows? How do we help practices avoid fragmented systems? How do we stop the fatigue about all this shiny new stuff?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good, that word shiny. I think that's something we try and avoid. We don't, for everything we build, we look at what does it actually do? How is it going to augment a practice's workflow? Why is it core and critical to what they need to do? And so we as a company, our philosophy is we don't come out there with the most innovative, out there, wacky things that are going to be adopted by a small number of dental practices. We look at what is the core bread and butter things that you need to do. How can we help you do that better so that it affects, to Ben said, affects as many people as possible and is as widely adopted as possible. So really, I'd say you, as a practice owner, or if you're working in dental practice manager, looking at how you can use technology to to augment your team. I would say there's probably, as you say, an overwhelming amount of stuff out there. We go to trade shows, and there's new tech and new people popping up all the time, and I struggle to keep up. And this is my job, and I spend far too many hours a day in this. So yeah, I can really understand why it's difficult if you work in dental practice. But I would say keep it simple. What are your biggest problems right now? What are the things that where you can where your team is spending time, that there are solutions out there that are you just already exist or you already have access to. You just need to enable them and build them into your workflow, because we do see a lot of customers reach out to us for help and they don't know they've got access to these tools, and that's probably on us. We don't do a good enough job of explaining to people why they should adopt this workflow, and so quite often you don't need to go out there and buy something new. You've already got access to it. You just need to enable it and build it into your process, and really. For us, you'd be amazed at how much you can improve life in a practice by just adopting and enabling the things you've got access to. You don't necessarily need to go out there and spend more money and integrate more tools and learn how to use those things.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think this is why we invest in things like our Elevate program, your customer success, making sure people understand the tools they have, how to use them, but also how to get the most out of them. And actually, part of that Elevate program is us learning how to use those things. There are definitely people out there that are exceeding best practice. So yeah, you can always
I am constantly amazed when we build something for a specific use case, and then you go and speak to a dentist and they're using it for something completely different and not what you thought at all, but it's working really well for them. And I sort of think, oh my God, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious when you look at it. And so, yeah, speaking to customers, and because they're the ones on the front line, because we don't spend time in dental practices, as Ben said, with the exception of our training team, we spend an awful lot of time in dental practices. They're the ones who know the technology better than us in some cases. So learning how they use it and how we can tweak it, refine it, and open up these additional workflows is super important for us.
Yeah, and not just the CS program, Elevate. It's also Dentally Community, great way of just getting involved and finding out that stuff. Okay, Ben, I'm going to put this question to you because I feel like James is probably going to be a bit biased on this one, but AI seems inevitable, and throughout many years we've seen lots of things that felt inevitable. But with AI, it kind of feels intimidating. Online booking felt inevitable, but it wasn't so intimidating. Yes, your diary might be filled up, but that's a good thing. But AI just feels really intimidating. From a leadership perspective, how do you think practitioners should approach this shift without that fear, without that intimidation?
Yeah, so I try to go and see a practice at least once a month, twice if I can, every month. And I went to a practice month or so back, and the dentist that I was talking to was sort of joking that AI was going to replace him personally. And I sort of realised after a little while that he was sort of joking, but he wasn't really. He was actually asking me if I thought that was true. And so, look, here's my view. I think AI, it's going to be like the Industrial Revolution, right? It doesn't mean that humans are going to not have any purpose anymore, but it will change how we do what we do. It will change the detail of what we do and how we do it. So in dentistry, I think what that looks like, I guess, who knows, way into the future. But in terms of what we can see right now, I think what AI is going to do is make the people we have more efficient and effective. And I think that the value of that is quite material when you zoom out and think about the big equation that we've got going on in this country at the moment. We've got less money and not enough people to deliver oral health care, and we've got a huge demand. If you think about the ability of AI to play into that challenge, it's huge, right? It can make people more effective, reduce admin, reduce the mundane, but also speed up clinicians. I think it has another really important role as well, and this is something I'm hearing more and more from the dentists that I'm speaking to, and that is in a traditional patient-dentist relationship, what you have is, if I'm the dentist and James is the patient, I'm saying to James, I have looked in your mouth and I see this problem and I think you should do this thing. So the relationship then is me and James. I am effectively trying to sell him something. So he has to decide whether he trusts me, whether he is going to do what I suggest. AI has the ability, with what we have available right now, to really quite change that dynamic between the patient and the dentist, right? So what dentists are increasingly using this for, chairside, is to change that relationship to say, so James, what I see and what the AI confirms is that you have this condition, this situation going on within your mouth. Here's how I recommend you solve it. And it subtly but really importantly changes the relationship. So it's no longer me versus James. It's now James and I versus the condition that is being confirmed and presented by the AI.
Yeah.
And I think that is really helpful. It fundamentally changes that relationship.
Yeah. And I think you started touching on it there, but James, let's get specific in dentally. Like, what role is AI going to play in dentally? Like, there's things we could talk about: ambient listening, defending against patient litigation, like Ben was touching on there. Where are we going in 2026?
Yeah, so I think what Ben explained there about using it as a patient education tool and patient education tools have been around for longer than I've been in the industry, so that's not new. What is new is this is, we're not just talking about some abstract thing now. This is your mouth, this is your tooth, and this is the problem, and so you can see it. So that's going to be quite a big thing going forward. You touched on the ambient thing there, so I would say watch the space for what we're gonna launch. Hopefully in the not too distant future, but I think that will become an increasingly important thing. So rather than you having to dictate notes as you do at the moment, AI will just summarize the notes for you. So it's got it can capture the entire conversation rather than just one person's view of the conversation, which we're all human. There's things certainly I forget to write down after a conversation. So having the whole thing summarized would be super helpful. And I think we're going to see that more from a legal compliance point of view coming up. We can already see in the United States that insurance providers are offering discounts to dentists who use these kinds of products because it helps them defend against claims more accurately and quicker, where you've got these kind of notes. And I'm sure we'll see the same in the UK sooner rather than later. I think the UK is even more litigious for dentistry than the United States, so it may already be happening, and I'm just slightly behind the curve on this. But really, it's all going to be about that note-taking and capturing informed consent, and just being able to write, patient consented in your notes. I think that's becoming and has become less of a defence, unfortunately, against patients should legal action arise. Yeah,
for sure. I think one of the core things about Dentally, and we've been talking about it for years, and obviously you've been talking about it since the beginning, is cloud. Cloud adoption, moving to the cloud, and Ben, you've seen this from both angles. On-prem, cloud, everything in between. And this year, more than any other year, we're seeing that massively accelerate. Hundreds of customers are moving from on-premise to cloud this year, and in 2026 it's going to be way more based on the movement that we're seeing. Why do you think it's so critical to move to cloud for practices, and how do you think that it supports the flexibility and growth that people are seeking?
Sure. Okay. As you say, this is really accelerating. In fact, we're moving over 100 practices a month from Exact across Dentally because of what cloud offers. So I think, we've talked about a few of the basics. There's remote access. That's a thing. It takes hardware out of the practice. We've been talking about that for years. But I think it materially changes what you can do with software in the practice, and for a number of different reasons. So first of all, if you're a multi-site, if you go back 5-10 years, the way multi-sites used to work is really a series of discrete businesses that might have a head office, might do some stuff centrally, but not much at all, really. With cloud, you now have the ability to operate truly as an enterprise, to have centralized teams that work across the practices, doing things like reception overflow, treatment care coordination, payments, all of that type of work can now be dealt with centrally, maybe by people working from home, because that is enabled by the tech. So it completely transforms the ability of multi-sites to, even if it's just 2 or 3 sites, to work in quite a materially different way. But I think one of the really big things, James alluded to it quickly before, but it's worth spending just a little more time on, is that it enables an ecosystem to build in the same way that the iPhone is really powerful because of the App Store. The same thing is kind of true with cloud-based practice management software. What cloud enables is what we call in the tech world APIs. For those that don't know what that is, an API is simply a connection into the software that other bits of software can use to pull and push data in and out. So it is the ability for other software manufacturers to join their software into Dentally and to push data backwards and forwards. And so what you're starting to see is this really brilliant ecosystem of third-party products popping up that are enabled by the power of entrepreneurs springing up, building all these great little businesses, all these great little tools that interact with Dentally that practices can choose to do the specific things that they want to do and take their practices in the direction they want to take them. And that's only possible via cloud. I think there's one other important point as well. If you want AI, you kind of really have to have cloud. If you think about the horsepower that you need to run software, in dental practice, 99.9% of the time, you kind of need like a lawnmower engine, right? Just not very much power at all. But when AI kicks in, for those few milliseconds, you need like the power of a jet engine on a 747 kind of thing, and you can't put that in the practice, right? That has to be, you can't have that level of power in the practice in a cost-effective way. That has to sit in the cloud. So the only way that this works effectively and seamlessly is to have the AI and the software based in the cloud so it can work as one.
Yeah, seamlessly connected, yeah. I think you talked about so many new things there, and so much that we've built over the years to be sort of new and our own version of these shiny things. But one thing that isn't new is recalls. But this year it feels new. In 2025, we've seen a 2.6% increase in patients booking recalls through Dentally. Huge numbers, like for something that we probably didn't necessarily expect. But what does this tell us now about patient habits, James, and their trust in these digital tools?
Yeah, great question. So I was trying to probably, if we go back to when maybe Ben started in the industry.
I'm noticing there's a theme here, right?
Yeah.
So if you cast your mind back all those years, if you wanted to go on a holiday, probably the way, not everybody, the majority of people would have done it. They'd have gone down their high street, they'd have walked into a travel agent, they'd have looked at options, and they'd have booked it there and then. I don't know about you, Alan, but I don't know anybody that does that nowadays. Now, there are still travel agents on high streets, but not as many, and it's certainly not the overwhelming way that people book their holidays. It's all done on their phone or their computer and their iPad. So if we compare that to dentistry, unfortunately, the industry, if you want to book a dental appointment, most people still either have to go into the dental practice and be there physically or call their dental practice, and very few appointments are actually booked online. And we could spend a long time talking about why, but I certainly think the demand issue is probably allowed that. And really, the unmet demand is patients want to book their appointments online. They don't want to have to call somebody. They don't want to have to go to the practice or book it at reception. They just want to be able to do it on their phone when it's convenient for them, and pick a slot. So we've seen big adoption of these tools in this year. As you've said earlier, this is becoming more commonplace. It's still not as widely adopted as I think it should or could be. And so we're on a big push to how do we make it even easier for practices, not because like the travel industry, they had to change and adapt to meet the demand of their customers. We haven't seen that in dentistry. What I think we'll see is the driver's different. Being able to change and adapt and offer more online will give you more flexibility for your team to be doing other things and not be spent trying to book appointments when a computer can do that for you in a safe, sensible manner. And really, how do you use the tools to drive loyalty with patients? So you get a reminder on your phone, one tap, yep, you're logged in, it's got all my details there, I can book it, and within 30 seconds that appointment's booked, and you don't need to worry about it. So certainly leaning into those workflows and using tools to get the right patient, the right message at the right time, so they can do the right thing. I think that is what we've seen drive the that increased effectiveness of recalls. Now, I would be lying if I said that's it and we've done. I think there's always a huge amount more we can do, and there's a lot more we can do to get those tools adopted with practices and make it even easier still for patients to manage their appointments online.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just stability for the patients, but it's also stability for the practice, like financial stability. I go to my treatment at Together Dental. That's my practice, and they send me my automated recall reminder, and I click yes, I want to take it, and they immediately send me a payment link. That's now £80 that's in their pocket 6 months ahead of time. So bring yourself financial stability as well as stability of oral health for patients. Okay, so Ben, look, we're not going to keep talking about how long you've been in the industry. We're going to look ahead this time, and we're going to look ahead to 2026 and the year that we've got coming up. What excites you the most about the industry's evolution, and what's the biggest challenge on the horizon? We've talked about lots of little challenge, but we want the biggest of both worlds.
Okay, so imagine a future, right? Imagine a future where, as a dentist, you come to work and your appointment book is full with the perfect blend of patients for that day. It's got quite a bit of cosmetic, some restorative, a few new patients, and then an appropriate number of recalls to make sure that your patients are properly cared for, but you're not filling all of your time just with, quite frankly, boring checkups. So as each patient comes into the surgery, they sit in the chair. You sit, you do your work, you just talk as you go, and by the time you've finished doing your patient exam, your base charting is done, your treatment planning is done, and your patient notes are all generated without you having, or your assistant having to do anything at all. It's all just done by ambiently listening to what's going on in the practice and absorbing those radiographs. AI takes care of it all. It does the base charting, it does the treatment planning, it builds the patient education, builds the treatment proposals, etc., etc. That's all taken care of. When you want to know what's going on in your practice, you're able to interact with with your data using natural voice. How am I going? Oh, well, your revenues are up. Your recall effectiveness is up. Your forward booking is looking pretty good. Blah blah blah. Imagine that. Well, each piece of that journey is actually possible today. This is not like the wild future that's out there over the horizon. Each piece of that can be done today somewhere in the world using Henry Schein software. Now, not all of that journey is in every one of our products everywhere in the world, but each piece of that is available somewhere in the world. Our mission through 2026 is to get all of those pieces into all of our software all across the world and make it a reality here in the UK and Ireland for our customers here. And so if we can do that, I think we could be quite, as an industry, not just software, but the dental industry could really transform over the coming few years. You asked about the biggest challenges. You asked for one. I think it's going to vary by practice. Some practices are really going to feel the pinch of workforce shortages. Others are really going to struggle with regulatory change. There is huge regulatory change coming in Wales, which I would question whether it's really been piloted. Well, it hasn't been piloted, and I'm really concerned about that. We've got new care pathways coming in England, NHS, so practices will struggle with that. And I think there's going to be less and less money in people's pockets, so that's going to be a thing as well. So I think it's really going to vary by practice.
Yeah, on that challenge piece, I would say I think there's just so much uncertainty around NHS stuff at the moment that I'm worried. So I'm Welsh, live in Wales. Our first Dentally customer was a Welsh dental practice. My dad's a dentist in Wales. My sister's a dentist in Wales. So I'm quite personally invested in dentistry in Wales, and I am there's just an overwhelming amount of uncertainty about what is going to happen. We've been shared more details now, still very late in the day, and I think everybody I speak to in the industry is working as quickly and as hard as they can to get to where we need to be. But there's so much that people don't know because these things haven't been piloted and tested effectively, that come 1st of April, everyone's sort of like just bracing for. There's just a lot of uncertainty, and I think we'll know when we get there what the actual impact is and how that works. So for different, I think as Ben says, I completely agree. For different practices, there's going to be different challenges all over the place. But certainly dental practices in Wales, they are the NHS dental practice in Wales. There are huge pressures that are going to come in, and how they adapt and get used to life under this new contract will be yet to be seen. I think.
Yeah, for sure. And we get continued changes to public health all across our territories as well. We're seeing it in APAC as well.
Yeah, NHS Wales have taken the headlines because they're trying to do something quite radical. But I would say NHS England are not also. They're also introducing big changes to their UDA system, and so there's going to be impact there.
Yeah, and like I said, the same across Australia, New Zealand, Canada. We're seeing changes everywhere, and like you said, Ben, I think the uncertainty is going to be different for every single one of our listeners and watchers on this podcast. Okay, so James, a lot of uncertainty in what you just said, but I'm going to ask you for a piece of advice. Not just for me, we'll do that offline, but for the people watching, what's one piece of advice that you would give to dental leaders about leveraging technology for patient-centric care throughout 2026?
Yeah, great question. I think probably one bit of advice I would say, because you can quickly get overwhelmed by the choices and the amount of solutions out there, I would say rather than going solution first, go problem first. Spend a bit of time reflecting on the challenges your practice faces and what the difficulties you have, what sucks your time the most, and then once you've got a good understanding of those, then look at what technology is available to help you, rather than saying, look what solutions are out there, and then trying to retrofit that on a problem, because there is some fantastic tech out there, some really cool early stage companies doing really great stuff, but it might not be what you need and what is your biggest challenge as a practice. So I'd say my probably one bit of advice is really to focus on the problems and then look for a solution rather than the other way around. And really, I would say lean into technology. So I'm a technology nerd and a geek, and I'm the kind of person who wants to be on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of things. So I will look for the shiniest tech. But I appreciate a lot of people are not like that and just want they don't want that. But I would say just go out there and have a look at what solutions are there to your problems, because I think you'd be surprised at how simple and easy these things are to get and adopt. And like I said earlier, you may already have access to this stuff. It's just it's not being adopted. So really focus on what are your core problems and how you can use technology and get the technology adopted. Make sure the work your team have understood it and you've gone through that change management piece, because I think that's another thing that we're I'm pretty bad at. I'm like, let's use this new tool, and then don't take the team on the journey to make sure it's actually embedded and working properly. Because it's easy to say, yeah, we're using it, but actually getting it established and used and getting things changed is that's the more difficult bit.
Yeah, for sure. And we hope to see everyone at the silly trade show season at the beginning of 2026 coming to us with their problems so that we can offer solutions.
Oh, 100%. As well as as a nerd, I'm quite interested in seeing all the cool ways that people are building stuff and are trying to solve problems out there. It's quite an exciting time for the industry, I think.
Definitely. Okay, so my final question to you both. We came to the end. It was a really good conversation, but we're going to boil it down into just a single sentence from both of you. The theme of this season of the podcast is leading with purpose. And Ben, we'll start with you. In one sentence, how do you define leading with purpose as it pertains to dentistry?
I think with all of the tech changes that are coming our way with AI, a lot is changing, but at the same time, nothing is changing. The reason I choose the dentist that I go to is just simply the person and the people around that person, the dentist and the people around that person. The extent to which you can free those people up and get them to a position where they can actually spend time with me, that is what keeps me loyal. And it is also what has really improved my oral health care over the years, is the ongoing little bits of education I get every time I go to the dentist. Just make it possible for dentists to spend time with patients. That's what's most important.
Definitely agree. James, your sentence?
Yeah, so I would say go back to basics, focus on the fundamentals of what, like, dental economics hasn't really changed. The funding models are going to change, and the world around us is changing. But really, that, as Ben said, the fundamental bits of a patient needs treatment, needs to go to the dentist, that hasn't changed. So I would say almost go back to basics, focus on your core metrics as a business, what are the things you need to improve and focus on, and then how technology can help you do that. Because I think it's quite a daunting future out there, but it doesn't need to be. And if you use the right technology, and focus on the simplistic workflows, I think you can actually get a lot further than you think. And if you're unsure about that, please come and speak to us. We've got a big team. You mentioned the customer success program. The customer success team will be more than happy to help. And they wake up in the morning really excited about how they can just help dental practices. So please reach out to them or come and see us at one of the trade shows. I love speaking to dentists and dental teams to understand their problems and how we can help. We're there to help, and we can do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, I'll plug it again, the dentally community. If that's your vibe, if you want to chat.
I keep forgetting the dental community, but you're spot on, Alan. It's something that has taken a while to get off the ground, but there's actually a really, really healthy group of dedicated people across the industry, not just us, who come together and give tips and advice. And so that is something that is, I think, 26, I'd say, watch this space. I think that's going to be even more valuable for people.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we end 2025 with 1,000 active users on the site, so it's a fantastic community of all different walks of life, just like you say.
Yeah, I think one of the big things I'd just add there is I go into practices quite often, and they say what we really want is this particular feature, and you go, what, you mean like this, and switch it on, and they're like, oh yeah. They say, you should have told us about it. Well, we had pop-ups and we had emails to you and we had, blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, we're not doing a good enough job communicating it. Don't assume that the things you need aren't there. Give us a call. Ask us again. We're doing so much work in the product. It is evolving so fast. And so it's just possible we've solved your problem. So, yeah.
I think that's a great point to end. So thank you both for joining me today. It was a really, really great conversation, and I can't wait until the end of 2026 when we do this all again.
Cool.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Al.
So guys, to continue the conversation and find out more about what we've been speaking about today, go in the link in the description below to download the 2025 Henry Schein One white paper. And to find out more about Dentally, go to dentally.com. Stay tuned for season 2 of Spilling the Teath, where I'm really looking forward to all the conversations we're going to have about leadership, team dynamics, and patient-centered care. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on all of the platforms to keep in touch with Spilling the Teeth through this year.